Malo lele, talo falava ki orana, Nisan bula vinaka, malo ni. Warm Pacific greetings to you and welcome to Pacific Health TV. This evening, I trust that you are all doing well at home. We acknowledge that everybody is in lockdown still throughout the country. Hopefully it won't be long, but we trust that all is well with you despite the fact that things are different. Our children have not been able to go to school. Many of us have not been able to go to work, but it's been a good opportunity for us as families to come together and just to stay connected, encourage our Pacifica families. But it's just great to be here with you. Thank you for tuning in. I am Dr. Ardern Moala, and Dr. Anna Mesui Justine is here with us. And there are important issues during lockdown that we just want to bring to your attention and to encourage us to stay engaged in the process, especially with regard to the health of our families and the health of our children. Some of you may be aware that there is the conversion therapy ban bill that is before our parliament. And we just want to talk about that with us today and encourage you, families, parents, caregivers. We need to stay engaged in the process because we don't have much time, especially during lockdown. The Labour government has introduced this bill about banning conversion therapy. And we've only got until the 8th of September before they close the submission to the Select Committee. So we want to encourage you, please make time to have your say. Write to the Select Committee, and we encourage you also to have a look at the Family First website. They have a lot of good resources there to help you understand what this conversion therapy ban is about. And do have a look at that. Don't leave it. It's important for you to have your say, for the sake of your children, for the sake of our communities, and for the sake of the next generation. But firstly, I just want to remind you, what is this about? It's to ban, is to stop, to make it illegal for us as parents to talk and to have a conflicting opinion, especially, for example, me as a mom. If my 10-year-old daughter comes to me and say, I do not want to be a girl anymore. I believe I'm a girl, I'm a boy, and I want to have some puberty hormone blockers. According to this bill that is being proposed by the Labour government, I am not allowed to discourage her from it, even though she may be 10 or 12. So this is what it's about. As a teacher at school, if you have a contrary opinion, you are not allowed to. You are in danger of being in jail. A counsellor, you cannot counsel them against it. People of faith or faith-based school, so whether it's a Christian or Muslim school or church, you are not allowed to say anything that maybe seem contrary to what this young person is wanting to change their gender identity. This is a fairly new development. I mean, not only this bill, but this whole gender dysphoria and transgender issues that is before us. With regard to gender dysphoria, that is not new. It's been around for many hundreds of years. And as medical doctors, we know that it's very common, especially for little boys, 2 or 3 years of age. They As little boys, they can just play and dress up like a girl and put on a little crown or tiara, and completely normal. It's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's just all part of their normal development. And, throughout the ages, that has always been. Or a girl, she can be a tomboy. And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just part of normal development. What is new over the last maybe 10 to 12 years is this whole transgender craze, especially amongst our teenage girls. And that is what is new, and majority of what's coming through, it's the influence of the social media, of TikTok, sometimes, unfortunately, at school, where they are taught that if you are a young girl, if your name is Anne or Mary, and if you want to be a boy, if you want to be John or Peter, you can be that. And this is a kind of, ideas that are being pushed upon especially our young girls. And we've seen the big change that is coming through, especially in America and in England. That is happening. It is quite disturbing, and it's important. We're not, coming against somebody who's, homosexuality. There's no judgment. We are talking about transgender, and we are talking about gender dysphoria. It's just a normal part of puberty for them, to, dress up or, be a tomboy. But then by the time you become into your puberty, most of those thoughts are just, they've disappeared. And over 90% of people who may have gender dysphoria, they just revert to what they were born, in their DNA. So that's what we're wanting to talk about this today. And I just want to ask, Dr. Anna, just your thoughts as a physician, as a family doctor. What are you seeing? Thank you.
Thanks, Ardern. So I've been working with young people for about 15 years. So I worked in the high schools as well as in the hospital setting as well with young people. And just with normal brain development, puberty is normal. Puberty is a normal transition from being a child to then becoming a teenager and becoming an adult. And so that's just a normal procession that happens. I'm starting to get parents who are struggling with their children, who are raising the flag that they want to change their gender identity. If they're a girl, they want to be a boy. If they're a boy, they want to be a girl. And they're starting to ask about tablets that change them. As a doctor, I'm a scientist first. So to be able to prescribe them these tablets, it's against basically my scientific training, because it is bringing a halt to something that is very natural, that God had created. And I'm very concerned that interfering with the normal process of development can be harmful for our young people, and that's what I'm worried about.
Absolutely. And I suppose, as quite a few of our colleagues already, they're seeing that the distress among parents, because the whole idea, I know with our Pacifica community, it's not something, it's not part of our upbringing. And I know also, not, with Pākehās also, it's not something that we sit around in our homes and say to them, or, to Mele or Mary, or, have you considered being a boy? These ideas are coming through social media, and these thoughts are coming through, but it's especially affecting our young girls. And I suppose this law that the Labour Party government is proposing, it's going to put your job at risk. especially if you're gonna say to the young person, no, you are a girl. If you say to them, can you just hold on and let the natural process of puberty development, let it take its course, because as we already know that over 90% of those with gender dysphoria, they come just back to their normal gender, their normal DNA. And I suppose for me, when I think of, we all know about anorexic nervosa. I mean, you've dealt with a lot of young people in your work at school, where there's depression, where there is anxiety. But I think of somebody who comes with anorexia, and and most of them, as we know, they don't eat because it's a mental health issue. And if they say to you, and the reason why they're not eating, because even though they may be 20 kilograms, they completely convinced that they are so fat, and that's why they're not eating. And imagine if they come to you and you turn around and say to them, yeah, Mele, you are so fat. I agree with you. Well, let's just not, don't eat because I agree with you that you're fat. I mean, that is the most irresponsible thing for you to do. And I know that no doctor will do that. Whereas this one, this whole idea is for us to agree with a young child that they are no longer, that they're not born a boy, even though they're a boy, or they're no longer a girl, even though they've been born there. And for us to start to affirm them with this whole affirmative care, I believe it's irresponsible. But even with our scientific knowledge now, you and I, and you as a family physician, you're in danger of going to jail. It's really sad, even though it's ridiculous. I mean, I think of those, in 30 years ago with the young women with anorexia. I mean, 90% of them died because they were not force-fed like we do now. I mean, we all know that, these young women or young ones, they come to the hospital and we force feed them against their will because they need to live. But now it seems crazy that they are saying to us now, we can't do science, we can't follow what we believe is true. You have to agree with this young girl, even though her brain development is not complete. We're not putting our young people down, our teenagers down, but we all know that their frontal lobe is not fully complete until about 25. That is the reason why the insurance company raised the premium for our children, our young ones who are learning to drive, and even though they can drive competently, the premium are still quite high until they're 25. So everybody, governments, everybody understand that, but only in the now that Labour government is saying to us, let them choose to be who they are, and I am really sad about that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So just my experience, as you said, I mean, it is quite worrying that it will put, clinicians like myself, at risk of going to jail if I don't agree with, this law. And that's, if this law is passed, that's what it will do. As you said as well, teachers will be affected as well, where, if they don't, if they don't believe in this law, but they still, basically have to teach it, even if they don't believe it. And if they don't believe it, they can go to jail as well for up to 5 years. Others as well, as you'd mentioned, are pastors. They can't counsel a young person, who may be confused about, their sexual orientation. If this law passes, then these pastors, that's what conversion therapy is talking someone out of, a decision that they're confused about. It just, puts the brakes on us being able to help these vulnerable people. So my experience with young people is because of their brain development, many of them are just, discovering who their identity is, who they are as a young person. They experiment with drugs, with alcohol, experiment with, also, who they are as an identity. There's many reasons, for this. Only a small percentage of young people that I see, have that confusion and, and go a little bit step further. And usually the causes are many causes. Some of the causes are that they've come from a home where there hasn't been a strong father presence or a mother presence. And they haven't had just that love and that affirmation as a young person. They haven't had, just that affirmation by their parents of who they are. Sometimes they are under peer pressure by others in the class, where it's going around that, let's all, change, our sexual identity. Sometimes, as Ate had said, you have girls who are tomboys who are very good at rugby and touch rugby and sports, and they may think, well, because I'm good at these boys' sports, maybe I should be a boy. A lot of young people I see as well, sometimes it's because of abuse, sexual abuse or, other forms of abuse. Many usually will struggle with anxiety and depression. And so usually what I find is that they really do need someone just to listen to and just to listen, counselling, and someone just to sort of figure out, where are they in this, how did they come to this confusion, and, how can we walk them through it? Because for many of them, they feel alone. But as you said, it's the social media which is their main, is the main thing that's feeding them, and that's concerning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Anna. I suppose there's a major concern that we are, is what we have done in the past with gender dysphoria, and we still do now, is we recommend, watch and wait and let the natural process, the puberty development just take its course, and people will just come right. Whereas now, if we're going to introduce the puberty blockers, these hormones, the damage is irreversible, and we all know that. The concern is because these young women, they're 10 and 12-year-olds, if we start disrupting them and giving them these hormones, these puberty blockers, so they will never have that development. It will not only affect them physically, but it will also affect them, emotionally, psychologically, and I think our responsibility, not only as doctors, but as parents also, that we are supposed to be there to be, the voice of wisdom, for our young people. But then if we don't offer that, and if we let them just go and get their puberty blockers, the next minute they take the medication, the girls no longer have their period, the girls no longer have, developed their breasts, and their body change, because we're getting, all these hormone blockers and stopping them from being a girl. And then they start doing the surgery to remove their breast, and then, the most awful thing to do is to remove their, the uterus, a hysterectomy. I mean, it's just absolutely, it's crazy as far as I'm concerned. No judgment, but what is happening is, we know that, the stats that's coming from overseas, the ones who have gone through this, there's quite a significant proportion of them who regret. But the damage has been done, and is irreversible. And even now, there are some of them who are suing. Now in their early 20s, they have been through the hormones, they have been through the surgery, does not deal with the underlying confusion. Even though they've had the medication, they've had the surgery, but it didn't deal with the underlying confusion. And now they're in their early 20s, and they're depressed. They are still confused and they're angry. But it's already now they're suing the clinics. And unfortunately, it seems like from the wording of this bill and what Chris Fafoy and the Labour government, they're pushing this during lockdown. There's not much space for us to be able to put in a submission. They usually at least 6 weeks, but now they've given less than a month. In fact, it's only about 8 days left. So just want to encourage you, parents, please have your say. Don't just, sit there and be disgusted or, be confused. There's plenty of resources. Go to familyfirst.org. There's lots of good resources there. Please write to your MP. Go to your local MP and say to them, I don't agree with this. I, as a parent, I don't want to go to jail. I, as a doctor, I don't want to go to jail. And I don't believe it's fair on our young people to do this, especially, when we're seeing the evidence that's coming from overseas. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
Absolutely. So we know that in Scotland, the government has passed the law in Scotland where if you're young as 4 or 5, you can decide whether you're a boy or a girl. And the reason being is that the government have said that a 4 or 5-year-old is old enough to decide what they can be. And so the parents have no say. The parents cannot, disagree with the young person. The teachers basically are mandated to agree and provide this young child on the journey of changing from a young boy, for instance, into a young girl. The concern is that this is what this law is about. And as a parent, if this law is passed, the only answer you will have to your young child or your teenager, that if they are thinking about, changing, their sexual identity because of this law, if it's passed, the only answer you will be allowed to say is yes. You will not be allowed to say, you're just a tomboy, you're beautiful as a girl, you can still be a girl. You'll not be allowed to say, just wait, just give it time. You will not be allowed to say why. All of those questions will be taken away from you. And if you do ask these questions, you can go to jail for 5 years. If you're a youth pastor and you have one of your youth who is confused in their journey, they may have had unwanted attention from others. I've known that some of the young people I've worked with, young girls on the bus, they've just said that they've had unwanted attention from other girls. And then that makes them confused in terms of, so does that mean that I, should be another sex, or, am I attracted to another sex? If this law is passed, you cannot counsel or reassure or comfort this young person. They're isolated, and whatever their call is, whatever they decide, the only answer you'll be allowed to say is yes. As we also know overseas, if you're a young person in overseas, you can actually go and see a doctor yourself without your mum or your dad, and you can get tablets to change your sex without your mum or dad knowing. You don't need your mum or dad. And that's a concern that children of a very young age have been given this ability to make decisions without their parents.
Oh, well, I hope you're hearing the message loud and clear during this lockdown season. This week, please write to the Select Committee. Please let your family know. Please visit your local MP and write to your local MP. Give them a ring. At the end of the day, they're interested in your votes, and you need to be able to have your say. Make time to talk to your children. This bill that is being proposed, it's not about just what happened in the public discussion. they're also suggesting that if it's happening in the privacy of your home and the privacy of your whānau in your kainga, you will still be liable as a parent. And Chris Fafoi was talking about that the process may take long, with the Attorney General when they finally decide to put you in jail. But that long, horrendous process where you will be harassed and they may even take your children away from you. That is not a threat. We're just talking about the reality of government interference with our role as parents. We are the best protector. We are the best carer. We have the best interest of our children. No one else. So go for it. Have your say. Tell your children that even if they decide that they're going to change, you can have the medication, you can have the surgery at the cellular level. You will still be a girl. If you're a boy and you do all the changes with hormone blockers, with surgery, at cellular level, you will still be a boy. Tell your children, have a talk. Make the most of the opportunity while we're in lockdown. Korero with your whānau. Don't let TikTok, don't let the internet be the loudest voice. That's what parents are for. We have wisdom, we care, and this is our time. We need to speak up. Family First website, familyfirst.org.nz, and have a look in there. Good resources, and please write to the Select Committee. Have your say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of the lockdown. Keep safe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye now.